Hi everyone, thanks for joining us here on the Garnish Chefs. Today, we're going to be looking at cooking some boneless pork chops. Pretty simple thing. A lot of people look at these as like, they don't know what to do with it. They see this massive pork loin and they're just not sure where to go with it, okay? Good thing about it is it's easy. It's something you can take. It's going to be a quick, easy meal. You can turn around in no time and make it. We're going to take a couple extra steps. We're going to make it as good as we possibly can. We're going to brine it, and we're just going to take our time with it, okay? So, if you want to make boneless pork chops, my best recommendation, go to your butcher shop, go to your grocery store. You can find these just about anywhere, okay? I don't recommend getting a frozen ones because it just kind of brings down the tenderness of it a little bit, but just get yourself a nice one, okay? Great thing about these pork chops, if you get them this way, it's going to cost you a little bit less money, okay? They do it a little bit cheaper this way because you're not paying for the labor for them to cut it for you. You figure out how to cut it, and you're all set. Pretty simple, okay? You don't have to trim it. You don't have to take fat off. You don't have to worry about silver skin, things like that, okay? It's simple, okay? Don't need a fancy butcher's knife. No, that's just for me, okay? Just get you a regular chef's knife. That's all you need. Great thing about it, you can customize it. You can take this and you can turn it into anything you possibly want it to be. If you want a nice 2-inch pork chop, cut a nice 2-inch pork chop. You want 1 inch, if you're gonna take it, pound it out, fry it, go for a nice 1/2 inch, maybe even just a little thinner, okay? Great thing about it is you can kind of work this into what you want, okay? For what we're gonna do, we're gonna brine it, and we're gonna end up probably pan searing it. I think that's usually the best route on these kinds of pork chops. I think it just helps in lock all of that moisture that it's gonna have inside of it. It just gives us a really great idea of all the seasonings that we can add to it. So now all we have to do is just cut it, okay? So I'm gonna go for about 1.5 inch kind of thickness. And then all you have to do is just cut them nice and consistent. Make sure your knife is sharp and it'll cut right through. Boneless pork, it's not anything crazy, okay? It's not gonna take a lot of pressure for you to kind of force yourself down through it. It's just a nice simple cut. Let the knife do the work, okay? Start your blade on it, pull it back, okay? See how that made just a nice little cut? Just let the knife do the work, and then all you have to do is just eat it. Just kidding. Now for the brine, I'm not actually going to be cooking a brine in this episode. There'll be other episodes where we cook brines, but for this one, we're not going to. When it comes to end pieces, you can do what you want with it. If you want to keep it, keep it. You want to throw it away, throw it away. I see no problem with them, okay? It's just like a small little test piece. I could take this out of my brine, okay, season it, and then eat it for myself. Why not? So all I'm gonna do, okay, I'm gonna take these, I'm gonna lay them right back in the same pan that I had them in. Just get them in here all nice and organized. Even the small little piece, okay? Now, all I have to do is grab my brine. I'm gonna pour it, make sure it covers all of this, okay? Because I want it to be completely submerged. I'm gonna let them sit in that brine overnight, okay? That way they can really grab all of the flavorings that's gonna be in that brine. If you've never made a brine before, if you don't know what a brine is, they're pretty simple, okay? Brines are very, very, basically almost like a marinade. What you're gonna do, you're gonna take some water, some salt, sugar, and any other seasoning that you want, and that's it. It's a pretty basic ratio. I'll have that pulled up right here or down below for you guys, but it's something that you can put together in almost no time, okay? One thing is you have to heat it up, okay? Dissolve the sugar, dissolve the salt, and then let it cool down. Okay, you can mix it with ice, things like that, or you can just let it naturally kind of cool down. Let it kind of reach temperature that's gonna be good enough. That way you're not pouring hot liquid on these and start to cook them already, okay? So what I recommend for at least for my brine, I'm very particular with basically using as much byproduct as I have. I don't like throwing things away if I don't have to, okay? So when I buy something, I wanna make sure I'm using all of it. Over the weekend, we cooked a lot of brisket, smoked items, things like that. We had pulled pork, chicken legs, all sorts of things that we were cooking, okay? I didn't use all of it. So what I did is I took those exact leftover smoked items, basically a couple chicken legs and a little bit of like the brisket burnt ends that weren't eaten, such a shame, and I turned it into a brine. I basically covered it with water, added just a little bit of extra seasoning. So my pork chops, when you see me add this brine, it's gonna have this kind of really dark cloudiness to it, okay? Your brine's not gonna look like that. It doesn't have to. And you're probably asking me, well, why do I add salt and sugar and things like that, okay? The salt, when it comes to a brine, helps break down those tough muscles that are inside these pork chops or any other meats that you brine it in. It's wonderful. Brines are something that I've kind of turned to over the last couple years as almost a cross between marinades. I find myself brining a lot more than I do marinating a lot more these days. The sugar, it's not gonna help a whole lot with the tenderness. It just kind of gives you a little bit of boost in the flavor. That salt is really kind of what helps start to tenderize the meat. You don't have to. You don't have to brine it. If you want to take it, skip ahead later in the video, watch us season it and cook it, you're good to go. I recommend doing this. It'll take your pork chops to a whole nother level. Okay, it'll be something like you're going out to a restaurant and you're ordering off their menu. It'll be great, I promise. So let's get it started, shall we? So I got my brine here. Okay, great thing about also making a brine, as compared to some marinades, okay, you're gonna want it to be a little over seasoned, not terribly. Don't make it to where it's too much that you can't even taste it, okay? But you just want it to have just a little bit of extra seasoning to it because this is gonna absorb that, all right? So just make sure that you just go just a little bit more than you usually would. Don't be afraid to taste it while you're boiling it, things like that, okay? So all we're gonna do is I grab a spoon. We're just gonna take this brine and make sure it's cold. It's very important that your brine is cold before you're starting this whole process, guys, okay? And you're just gonna make sure that they're all nice and covered, all right? And great thing is, if there's anything else you wanna add to a brine to kind of start incorporating flavors, say you've got leftover vegetables in your fridge, something you're not getting ready to use, great, throw them in. Basically making a vegetable stock at that point. If you've got herbs, things like that, stuff that you see is gonna go bad, might as well use it up. There's no point, you paid for it, use it. So, we'll cover this back up and give us another use for something else maybe this weekend. Now, all we have to do is we're gonna take our pork with our brine, we're gonna wrap it, we're gonna put it in the fridge, and we're gonna let it sit overnight, okay? You can kind of let this brine as long as you want. You want to go a full 24 hours, go a full 24 hours, okay? It is 7 o'clock right now. I'm going to let it go till probably about noon, 1 o'clock tomorrow night. And then we're going to have some fun with it. All right, guys. This is day 2. As I said, brine it however long you want. I went overnight, okay? If you want to give it 2 days, give it 2 days. That flavor is just going to kind of keep increasing a little bit over time. And the longer you brine it, the longer that salt gets to sit into that product and really start breaking down the muscle fibers and things like that. And the more tender of a product you're going to have, okay? I apologize about the camera angle from the first video. Things got moved around at the very last second and I didn't realize it. I apologize. So, here's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna drain off our pork chops. We're gonna let them rest for just a second, kind of get a little bit of that extra moisture off the side. Because if we leave that on, when we go to sear these, what's gonna happen is it's just gonna be a mess, okay? When we drop it into the oil, you're just gonna have splashes everywhere. It's just gonna be frying that water in the oil, and it's just gonna be flying everywhere. If you ever cooked something or pan seared something and you start getting like little hard specks of oil splashing up on your arm, that's from the moisture on the outside of the product starting to come off, okay? And it fries in that oil and explodes. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna drain it. We're gonna let it dry for just a second. It doesn't have to be long, okay? Then we're gonna season it, okay? Over here, I've got your guys' little basic recipe, okay, for a brine. It's simple, okay? If you need more, okay, you can easily increase this. Great thing, like I said, about a brine, do what you want with it, okay? If you want to go for kind of an Asian style, brine, you want to add a little bit of soy sauce, some fresh ginger, maybe a little bit of like granulated onion, things like that. Kind of build your flavor profiles. If you want to go more of like a barbecue, something a little bit of like a smoky kind of product, take your brine, switch out your sugar for some brown sugar, give it that little kind of barbecue sweetness, add some paprika, maybe a touch of cayenne, fresh garlic, add what you want, okay? Brines are so versatile, and it increases the flavor profile, okay? It really gets any of those seasonings that you want deep into the product. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna drain it, we're gonna dry it, we're gonna season it. I'll walk you guys through what I'm gonna do. Very basic seasoning. This video, more or less, just about how to cut and cook and what I recommend. That's it, okay? We'll get further along here soon. I'm gonna drain them and then we'll go from there, okay? All right, guys, so we're drained. Look at these. Look at these little pork chops, okay? And you're getting that from a market and doing it yourself, okay? You're gonna cut costs down a little bit. This entire pork loin was about 4 pounds, okay? Cost me about $6, $7. That's it. And right there, I've got 7 meals out of it, okay? You can increase all of the things that you're doing, okay? You've just got to look for these little things at the stores, okay? Learn how to do it, and I promise you guys, you will not be disappointed, all right? So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take these, I'm gonna set them on a paper towel here, just to kind of get a little bit of that extra moisture off, okay? Like I mentioned yesterday, end pieces, you do what you want with them. If you don't want an end piece, cook it, give it to your dog. It'll be okay. I'm very particular. I like to take my end pieces and I kind of cook those first. See where my seasoning's at, okay? If I had a brine that I made pretty decently salty, okay? Or if I had a ton of different flavor profiles in it, okay? I'll cook my end piece, try it, see where my flavor's at. See if I need more salt when I season it on the outside. See if I want a little bit of a sweetness. See if I want a little bit of, kind of a garlic flavor or herbs or anything like that. So we'll let these sit for a second, then we're gonna rub them. Okay guys, let them dry off a little bit. I went ahead and tested my end cut piece. The smokiness that I talked about in my brine from earlier, okay, it really took on those flavors really nicely. The seasoning, I definitely still want to get a nice seasoning on the outside of this to make sure that the pork chop itself just comes together as one whole seasoned unit, okay? So we've been letting these dry. I'm gonna take one more round with a paper towel. Just pat down the outside of them very nicely. It doesn't have to be crazy. Don't have to like force yourself into it. Just let it go, okay? Basic seasonings here, guys. I'm not gonna do anything crazy. We're gonna go with a nice kosher salt. Give it a good sprinkle. And then all we're gonna do, a little bit of coarse black pepper. I like having a coarse pepper more than a fine ground because I like that little bit of a bite that it kind of gives to it. And then we're gonna go with some granulated garlic, okay? Guys, if you use garlic powder, granulated garlic, there's a very big difference between the two. If you've ever been, example for this brine, okay? If you've ever been making a soup, anything like that with a garlic powder, okay, you start adding it, you'll kind of notice that it stays clumpy, okay? Garlic powder is very dry. it's a powder, okay? So anytime you add it to a liquid, things like that, it just kind of clumps up and you're not getting all the flavor out of it. I almost never use garlic powder anymore. I almost always try to go with a granulated garlic, okay? It's a much better result if you like that garlic kind of flavor. So we're gonna give these pork chops a nice little sprinkle of that. Then we're gonna flip them over, do the same thing, and we'll be ready to start searing them. Okay, so we're all seasoned. I mean, look at these nice little pork chops, guys, okay? You've got a good seasoning on them, okay? You've got a nice brine in them. Gonna have a lot of little bit of extra tenderness that's just gonna kind of give it this good bite. When I say it's gonna give it some tenderness, okay? It's not gonna make it like a filet mignon, unfortunately, but it's gonna take it up to that next level, okay? There's a lot difference. If you cook them side by side, an unbrined versus a brined, you would definitely notice a little bit of in the tenderness, okay? So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take these, we're gonna get a nice pan on the stove, get it hot, and we're gonna give these a really good sear. I've cut these about 1.5 inches thick, okay? This is gonna take some time in a pan, okay? If you don't like searing, waiting for it, things like that, give it a good sear one side, go right into the oven, 350 degrees. A little bit less time, it's not gonna be a huge difference, but it makes things a lot easier, especially if you're gonna try and cook all 70 of these at once, okay? You can easily take 2, put them in the freezer, take 2, save them for a later date in the week, okay? Makes things just as easy. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna try sear all these, one good side, we're gonna get them in the oven, and we'll be good to go, okay? Let's do it. All right, guys, we got our oven hot. We're gonna start getting our pan hot, okay? You're gonna wanna start this at a pretty high heat, okay? If you just wanna get a nice sear on one side, critical thing is having a pretty high heat. We're gonna be in that medium-high range, okay? And then we're gonna get a good sear, go on the sheet pan over here, and we're gonna go right into the oven, okay? 1.5 inches, I'm thinking this whole process would take about 15 to 20 minutes. I've got 7 that I'm gonna be cooking, okay? I don't think that's too long, all right? So let's get it started, shall we? All right, guys. So we're grabbing our last pork chop here, okay? I mean, look at this, okay? Get a nice sear on it. Okay, I've got all 7 on here. Oven's already hot at 350. That took about 5 minutes to do all 7, okay? Depends on what temperature you want them. You can have pork medium rare if you wanted, okay? That's up to you. I know everyone's very particular about kind of how they eat their pork. I'm a medium rare, medium kind of guy. But we'll go over that in a couple minutes, okay? Now, all we're gonna do, we're gonna get this in the oven, give it about that 10 to 15 minute range, and then dinner's ready. Okay, guys, 10 minutes has gone by in the oven. We're gonna pull it out. We're gonna see what the temp is, see if we need to go any longer. All right, so when it comes to a pork chop, I recommend medium rare. You can cook it however you like. I wouldn't go anything under medium rare. It's safe, but to me, medium rare gives you a great moisture on the inside of the product, and a great little kind of like steak bite to it, okay? And it's perfectly safe to eat, I promise you. I promise you, okay? Even the FDA recommends that, okay? So, we're gonna take the temperature, see where we're at. We're gonna be about 145, okay? Now, when it comes to these, you've also got to take into effect that you're gonna have a little bit of resting time, okay? When we pull these out of the oven, which we're gonna do right now, we're gonna let them rest. And I'm sorry, you probably don't want to hear that. Mike, we've been working on these for like 3 days. Seems like forever, okay? I get it. We're gonna wait just 5 minutes, tops. Let it rest, okay? Let the juices kind of get reabsorbed back into your pork loin. And this applies to just about any meat, okay? You're cooking a steak, you're cooking bacon, you're cooking pulled pork, brisket, anything, okay? Give it just a minute to rest, okay? Let that moisture, the fat, the things like that just kind of get reabsorbed back into it. It's gonna go a long way, I promise you. So we're gonna let it rest, we're gonna slice it, and we're all done, guys. So just be patient with it, okay? Promise you, it'll be worth it. All right, guys, we've waited, okay? Just a couple minutes. We're gonna slice it now, and then see how it tastes, okay? All right, guys. So there's your pork chops. Tell me what you think of them, okay? Tell me what you guys did with your brines. I would love to know. I love seeing what people can incorporate into their flavors, especially when it comes to that. It's very versatile. Let me know what you guys think. I wish you luck. More videos coming soon, all right? Thanks.